Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Community Proud podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we have a little bit of a new
surprise.
A new surprise.
Abraham Jacobs on the second mic for the intro.
Wow, this is very interesting. So we're just trying this out. And if we like it, we'll keep it. And if we don't, then you guys won't see it anymore.
Yeah,
but
so Dustin's there. He's in the action, doing the interviews. But I see what the viewers see. But while it's happening, I see it a week before or 2 weeks before, and I got that viewer insight.
He's literally watching it over and over and over and over again. It's like watching a movie so many times that it almost gets annoying, but
the quality is just so good, bro.
but he loves it. He loves doing it, and we appreciate him over here at the podcast. And when I say we, I mean me. I appreciate him because it's just us two. So with that, we're gonna talk about this episode with David Sumbela. This is episode 8, I believe. Episode 8. So I was doing the interview, of course. And this guy has a really cool story. He's not from the country. He is from somewhere else, but I'm not going to tell you right now. I'm going to let you find that out during the episode. Abraham, what is your take on this episode? What did you think about it?
My take on this episode.
You were there, live.
Yes, and man, when you see people who are working to perfect themselves in what they do and how they perform, you don't see as many people who put so much effort into learning about their craft as Sumbela does, as David does. He has so much research, always listening to interviews and podcasts and music. He had interviews playing when we walked in the door. Yeah. And he really does, pays attention, and he learns, and he creates. And check out Let Me Know. Album should be in the description. Sumbela's new album, it is great. Listen to it on the ride over. Bumped it all the way to Fresno.
Bumped it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that was a good intake or insight that you had there, Abraham. And just to add to that, like he said, this guy's just mastering his craft day in and day out. He's like not resting. He's constantly looking at his favorite artists, seeing what he can, not comparing, but seeing what he could learn from those artists. And you'll hear a little bit of that in this episode as well. And we just had a great time talking with him. He's a really cool guy. He's a Christian, and we really appreciate him letting us into his home. And we even got to see his little home studio, and that was pretty cool.
Pretty sick.
And so with that, this is going to be episode 8 with David Sumbela. Sumbela, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, man.
Really appreciate. This is your first podcast, right?
It is my first ever podcast.
How you feeling?
I feel good. I feel really good. I feel excited. Like we were talking before, like what I do in my time, my free time, or even just like working on music. Just like I work on music and I just watch interviews by artists all the time because I'm trying to learn new things. So it's kind of like honestly, it's kind of like an odd dream coming true right now. So.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, once again, I really appreciate your time. It's like 10 a.m. right now. It's
on a
Saturday morning, which is mostly not ideal for some people, but I asked him, he was like, sure, go ahead. And so, yeah, we're really appreciating it.
No, I'm excited, man. Thank you.
So, like I said before, I mainly have like 3 parts of the interview that I do. Your kind of like your backstory and how you came up, and then what you do now, and a little bit of like life lesson stuff afterwards to close everything up. So, are you originally from here?
No, I'm not from here. So this is interesting. So I'm from a country called the Congo. Okay. And I moved here about 5 years ago to go to college. So I've been here in Fresno for 5 years now. I moved here and went to a college called Fresno Pacific. Went there, did philosophy as a major. Just graduated a year. I've been done with school for a year now. That's kind of my backstory. So I'm not I'm not from the U.S. I think if you talked with me enough, you'll notice the accent. Like, where is he from?
A little bit.
So
okay, cool. And so, How was it like, I guess, growing up in the Congo then? Because we obviously haven't had that kind of story yet on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, it was different because, I mean, it's kind of like a night and day experience, you know, in the U.S. and back home. I mean, the general factual truth is, you know, that my country is a third world country, so it's kind of like a whole different experience than from the U.S. But growing up there was, of course, there's there's hardship going around the world, you know, everywhere. But in a third world country, you can just imagine what's happening there with poverty and political conflict and just like not being stable. But at the same time, it was like really filled with like a lot of cultural kind of like really cool stuff culturally, like music, like dance, and the arts and everything. So yeah, it was kind of like a different experience, but still, for me, looking back, it really made up for who I am today, you know. So yeah, it was a really different experience, but I'm kind of glad that I grew up there and that my origins are from there, because even musically, I can just pull from many, you know, different directions and taste and everything, and kind of like create something unique. So yeah.
Okay, so you came here just to like specifically go to college then?
Yeah. So I graduated from high school and I was working for a year, but my parents and I were always planning for me to come to the U.S. and to go to college, because my dad has been traveling to the U.S. at that point for a long time. So he kind of wanted me to have this experience and everything. So yeah, it was our plan. At first we wanted to go to a different place, but we ended up in Fresno because he met someone here and they became really good friends. But yeah, that was the original plan. But for me, it was like, yeah, I want to, you want to go to college because you want to kind of, for your parents to not worry about what you're going to do in life. You want to have that sense of security. But for me, it was always like, yeah, I want to go to college, but I really want to take this opportunity to go to the U.S. to kind of like explore what I can do musically and pursue that dream that I always had. So.
Okay, so yeah. How'd you land in Fresno?
Of all places,
Of all places, hot Fresno.
I know. Well, I just watched like this crazy ad, and I'm kidding. Yeah, so like I was saying, my dad has been traveling because my dad is a pastor, so he's been traveling to the U.S. for a long time, even before I came. And for some reasons, he was in Bakersfield for a conference or whatever. And one of his friends, who's also from Congo, drove him to Fresno to meet like pastors and people and stuff like that. So he met like the dean pastor for FBU, for Fresno Pacific, and they just like forged like a really cool relationship and stuff like that. And from there he was like, you know what, like you should go to. He thought that it would be really cool for me to go to a place where we at least knew one person instead of like just going to a new world with no reference whatsoever. So yeah, that's kind of like how I came to Fresno, and it's a kind of like cool story. But that pastor kind of became another dad figure for me here, and his family kind of like took me in. But yeah, that's kind of like how I ended up in Fresno, of all the places in the U.S.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So was it like did you like specifically want to do philosophy, or was philosophy just like something that you just got in with, I guess?
Yeah, because I went into college and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. One of my passions, I had two passions mainly, was to do music, but also to kind of like learn something about church history and ministry and stuff like that, because I saw my dad do that for the most of my life, and I love that. So that was kind of like something that I knew for sure that I wanted to kind of like venture in, but besides that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So over the years, because I've always been super interested in storytelling, and I think storytelling as a direct kind of like link to philosophy and all that kind of stuff, and how to, you know, think about life and how to think about just like values in general, or how we live our lives and stuff like that. So all of those questions kind of like led me step by step to philosophy. And the freedom that I found in philosophy is just to ask the hard questions and like learn how to navigate things, which is like a tendency that I've always had, because I've always been passionate about storytelling through songwriting and stuff like that. So so philosophy was kind of a home for me in terms of like not being afraid of asking the hard questions, but not just like through like a philosophical lens, but how to use those tools that I've learned to apply that in songwriting and storytelling. So yeah, I think that's probably the main reason why I chose philosophy.
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
So from there, how did you transition into now songwriting?
Yeah, so I've been, so a little bit of my background. So like I said, my dad is a pastor, and my mom, before she married my dad and even after, was a full-time musician back home. So she would do albums, and she was really like living the artist life. So I was kind of born into that, kind of like that musical environment and community. So I would always I remember when I was a kid, she recorded one of her last albums at home, so they kind of like built a studio at home and stuff like that. So that was kind of like what I was, seeing on a daily basis and stuff like that. So at the age of 9, I actually, before starting like singing, I actually started writing songs at 9. And they were terrible for a couple of years. But that was my first passion. I didn't even start singing probably 2-3 years after that. So songwriting has always been like a real passion of mine. So from the age of 9 until now, even going to college, I was always like writing songs and stuff like that. But they're kind of like getting better, and I was trying to find my own voice, and I feel like it's kind of coming full circle now and maturing right now. But so that's always been a passion of mine, like to write songs and stuff like that. But I think after I did philosophy, after I went through college and kind of like experienced like different, especially when I came to the US, I was like open to a lot more music, a lot more content, and all of that. So that kind of like flex and stretch my songwriting muscles and what I wanted to be able to do and what stories I wanted to tell. So that kind of like developed a lot throughout my years in college. So when I did philosophy, that's when I really took seriously writing stories. But so I did a couple of stuff in college, a couple of like competitions and like talent involved and stuff like that. And I released my first project actually at FBU in my school. So it was a 5 songs EP. So that was kind of like my first like major try at music. So I went to Redding, California, of all places, because I saw a studio that I was really interested in there. So I went there for a week and just recorded literally the whole record in a week. Played every instrument and all of that. So I did that, released that in school, and it was kind of like, it was really good because, in hindsight, I don't know that I love the project, but I love at least like the opportunity for me to try something and to kind of like, based on that, know what I actually want to do, what kind of music I actually want to make and stuff like that. So that was kind of throughout those years in college and through like trial and error, that was kind of like some of the things that began to solidify my ability to be a musician and stuff like that. And during those years, I would just like play on campus, like different events and stuff like that. I remember when I came to the US, I discovered Ed Sheeran. And that just blew my mind. I'm like, who's this guy? And if you know anything about Ed Sheeran, I mean, he's Ed Sheeran, so most people know about him. Yeah. But it's like, he has this thing called a loop station, and he just like loops everything with that. And so he creates like beats and So if you go to a show, it doesn't have a band, but it just sounds like a band. So I kind of took that in and took that model in. So I would just like perform at school and perform like at malls and just go around and just do that. And so that kind of like helped me grow as a musician and kind of own in a little bit of my craft. So yeah, that and then doing stuff at school with like being involved in, you know, worship bands and stuff like that in churches as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the response that you got when you were first starting out, playing at malls, playing at school?
Yeah.
What was the response that you also had with like your EP?
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. I think it's hard for me. Well, it's not hard for me to assess how I'm doing in terms of like, you know, if my singing is good or my songs are good. I'm pretty hard on myself. But I think it was a really cool experience, kind of like, you know, because you can tell yourself, you know, I sing, but, you know, when you're in front of people and you can tell, you know, like if it's just something that you're, you know, putting into your head or it's actually real. So when I did a specific thing called Mr. FBU, I think you can find it on YouTube. I mean, that was kind of like the start of my thing. It's a kind of like a competition-based thing in my college where kids just show up and, you know, whatever talent you have. So I won that contest and I wrote a song for it, and I did the looping and everything. So after that, and after winning that contest and after receiving so many good feedback from that performance, that kind of like gave me a confidence, like, oh man, like I'm really meant to do this. Even like back home, you know, being involved in my dad's church and doing a lot of writing and stuff like that, I've always received really positive feedback that was kind of like what I needed to do. But after that specific FBU event, I was like, yeah, I need to record an album. I need to start making stuff. And it was always really positive around school and even playing at malls and stuff. But the reaction to the first album was good for my college and the churches that I knew. But beyond that, I didn't really promote it or anything. I didn't really went after it in terms of putting it out there because I was proud of it, but not enough to kind of push it because it was my first project. But yeah, the experience was really good. The feedback was really good, and in a lot of ways that gave me kind of courage to continue. Though the journey to where I am now was kind of like really super long. And what I meant by that is when I did my first record, I was like, you know what? I think I can sing, I think I can write songs, but the production value was really low. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try to write songs and find the producers to make it happen because I wanted that quality. So after releasing my first record, I think it was in 2015, I believe, I just went on this journey to chase producers and try new things and stuff like that. And I remember specifically one producer that I worked with who was really experienced. And I remember being in a session with him. This is probably 2 years after my record is out. At that point, I was working at a church, really involved with church and stuff like that, but I still wanted to do albums and record songs. And he told me straight up after we worked at a session, he was like, dude, you should produce your own stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't have any experience, I don't have any equipment, like I'm coming to you because I want that best quality, because I was like, I'm hearing artists and like I want my songs to sound as good as that. So that was a really discouraging moment for me. I was like, oh my God, what are you even talking about? I don't have the tools to make it happen. So even a year after that, I still like was chasing producers and stuff like that, until 4 months ago, when after I took a break from my job, I realized like, dang man, like, you know, and after like watching, learning from different artists like 21 Pilots or even Billie Eilish and her brother, just like learning so many stories of how artists, you know, had so little to work with, but because they're passionate about what they're doing and because they're truly talented, they made something great out of what they had. And for me, that was such an awakening for me. And I was like, yeah, I don't need to chase all those producers. I can work hard and use what I have to make something really great. So that was kind of like a ha-ha moment for me and a breakthrough, if you will, of creating this record, of even creating that first song that's been out, my first single that's been out. So yeah, it took me at least 3 years to get to this moment of like, man, like I can do this. So yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess how's it been so far with just producing your own things? What was like the trials and tribulations with that?
Yeah. I think the main thing was just starting songwriting and starting producing, because like I was saying, I didn't stop writing songs, but I wasn't producing. So 4 months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start producing some songs. And actually, I didn't have any agenda. I didn't know that I really wanted to produce a natural record, but I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna start. And the roadblocks were, of course, like, man, I don't have this equipment, I don't have this plugins that's gonna help me make this sound good and stuff like that. I don't have a studio space to record what I want to do and stuff like that. But literally, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start with what I have. So literally, I had just my laptop, my headphones, and a small MIDI keyboard, and I was like, I'm just gonna start doing this. So it was out of that place that I did probably 4 to 5 songs that are not on the record, but those songs kind of like helped me get back. And I realized doing that I have grown so much as a songwriter and as a producer, because my taste was mature and my ability to create melodies had really evolved. So it was from that place that I had to that I really started creating. But in that process, I needed to shut down the voices of comparing myself to other artists, and that was a really, really huge process in me making music again. I had to stop thinking like, oh, I need to make a record like 21 Pilots. I need to make a record like, you know, Shawn Mendes or whoever it is. I had to be like, no, this is who I am. This is my voice. This is the abilities that I feel like God has given me. And that I have, that I'm gifted with. I'm just going to use this to the best of my ability and refine this. So shutting down the voices of comparing myself to others was a big deal, and was a huge, huge demon to conquer, because, all those artists that we really love, they had to do the same thing too, because for me, I was like, I don't want to make something that just sounds like the cousin of something else. Yeah. But the thing is, like, as an artist, especially like if you want to do this for a living, you're like, oh man, I need to make this work. I need to make a song that these people will love. But that's really where you can create something unique. Of course, like, you're always influenced by things and stuff like that, and by different artists. But you need to have the courage to be like, this is what I like, and I'm going to fight for it. And I'm going to make something that I love. I'm going to make something that, I can rock with in the car, that I can blast and have fun with. So that was the mindset that I needed to equip myself with as I was going into producing this record. And so a month in producing this record, I feel like I really adopted that mindset, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to block all those voices and create something that I'm proud of and that I love. So that's when all the songs that are going to be in the record, even the first one, started to really come to life. And this is probably the most fun I've had at creating music, because I had no limits. I had no limitation, or I was just like, I'm just going to create something that I love. And the possibilities were endless. So.
And it was just all about getting out of that mindset of like, don't look to this artist or whatever. Just like, because do you want to answer that?
Yeah.
we were talking about you getting out of that like mindset of comparing yourself to bigger artists. And I've, at least for me too, like I've looked to other podcasts and I need to be careful about not comparing, but just to learn from them, specifically just to learn from them, but not like, oh, they're like better than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's this like one podcast I listened to, I mentioned on the last episode as well, Short Story Long, that he does this but like on a larger scale.
Yeah.
With like, I don't know, other celebrities and you name it, a whole bunch of famous people. And he just like, that's all right. He just gets like a whole bunch of like interviews just like this, get their story. And I just needed to be careful about not comparing myself to that, but just specifically just learning from that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm dying over here.
It's all right. Do you want to get water now?
Yes. I'm so sorry.
I was talking about, okay.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Comparing yourself.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, like, I just had to be careful not to like compare myself to other podcasts instead of actually just learning from them, because that's what you got to do, just learn from them, but not compare. Because that just gets you in like a negative mindset, because then it starts bringing just negativity on yourself, and you start thinking like, oh man, well, I'm not as good as them, or whatever you think. And but it's just like good for anyone really, no matter what you do, just don't compare but learn.
It's kind of but it's kind of crazy because my view of the world is, I mean, I'm a Christian or whatever, but is really informed by the truth that everyone is made with a unique gift and voice and personality that the other human being doesn't have. I really believe that, you and or anyone else, like we each have something to offer to the world that is unique. But it's so hard to live in that reality because, especially when, you're doing something that other people are doing, like you're a musician or you're doing podcasts or you're in business, like you're like, oh man, you're looking at everyone, you're like, okay, what new thing am I bringing on the table, you know? And it's kind of hard to navigate that, because you want to be as good as them, you want to do great stuff, but you can be stuck in that mindset of, man, like, I don't know if I can be better than those people. But you have to kind of like, you have to believe that you're made in a really unique way and you have a unique thing to offer to the world. And that's kind of like the mindset that set me free to create this record, and I had to believe, no, I'm made uniquely and I have something to offer to the world that Billie Eilish doesn't have. But it's so crazy to think that way, because like you look at her and your career and you're like, oh my God, she's so awesome, right? And you're like, what can I bring to the table? But yeah, you need that mindset, and then like you were saying, like, of course you learn from different people, but you need to own in who you are and just trust that and run with that. And people only connect with what's authentic, and that was an encouragement for me. It was like, if I'm going to be an artist, I want to be authentic, I want to be myself. And it's because I connect to those artists because they're authentic, they're themselves. They're not trying to recreate something that's always been. They're trying to own in their craft, their voice and their message. So yeah, that's such an important thing. I hope that, that somehow through my music or through who I am, that's how people are going to get encouraged. No, you're special. You have something to offer to the world that's unique. So don't be afraid to, pursue that.
Of course. And you see like so many people, well, between I'm 20, you're 25.
Yeah.
Even his age, he's 15.
Yeah.
You see so many people starting from about his age to where we are now, 2025.
Yeah.
They listen to outside influences a bit too much that kind of control what they do in life. Like some people, I'll say, I don't go to college, and that's just like I had to like get there though. Like I had to. At first, I was like all about college, like because you know, parents and family and friends. That's what they all did. That's what they're all doing. That's what they all want me to do.
Yeah.
And with other people, it's the same thing. Like maybe, I mean, maybe college is something people should be doing. But maybe, you know, maybe it shouldn't be. It just all depends on what you want to chase. But you can't let like those outside influences like control you. You gotta just do your own thing. Really, you gotta find your passion and chase that, just like you said.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of the most important thing to carry, you know, as you navigate this world, is to just to understand that, you know, you've been gifted in a unique way. And yeah, it's crazy to think about, just with the amount of human beings on the planet. You're like, oh man, there's that many people. Like, what's my place here? You know, what's my voice here, and what's my contribution here? And I think our generation, especially with like, you know, social media and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there is a good aspect of social media, but I think one of the things that we have to navigate through and be careful with is, you know, the life that people are living through social media. That's their life, you know. And I want to be careful, because you can fall into the trap of like, oh man, I want my life to look like that. I want this, you know. But I think the way that we're made begs for a life of like setting ourselves apart and recognizing, no, I'm an individual. I'm unique, and I have something unique to offer to the world. But you can't live in that way if you're just too busy looking at others, you know. You have to not retract yourself, but you just have to set yourself apart and be like, no, I have a voice, you know. I have something to say. And but the thing is, like, you have to fight for that, because it's so hard to live in that way. Even as I'm making this record, you know, I was just listening to because one of the things that I did when I was making this record, I was like, I'm not going to listen to music, you know. I'm just going to focus on this record, which is so hard for me to do because I love music. But I was listening to the new, I don't know if you know, Brockhampton, a really awesome, talented group. Just listening to their album, I was like, man, like, it's so good, you know. And but even, you know, I have to remind myself it's good, but it's good because they're themselves and they created something unique, you know. But I don't want that to influence me in creating my record, you know. I want my record to be who I am. So there's always those temptation all around us to be like others, but you have to fight that. You have to really, like, you have to fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So now we kind of already transitioned to it. Yeah. But more like I said earlier, like life lesson stuff. That's where we now, like we've already been doing, like giving back to the people. Who listen, who what they want to like take away from. We already talked about basically just chase your dreams, go after what you want to go after. But now let's talk about more of like what you do. So how would someone around our age, 20, 25, maybe even if they have, and I ask a similar question like this every podcast, maybe they even have like a budget that they need to get started on, but they want to be an artist just like this. What would you suggest to them? Yeah,
this is such a weird question. And the reason why it's weird for me is because I'm a new artist. And, you know, I look for that advice in other artists. But yeah, I think on top of, you know, of being unique and all that kind of stuff, I think to start, what you need to do is to adopt a mindset that what I have is enough to start. That's the first thing that you need to really understand, is like, like whatever I have, if it's a ukulele and an iPad, like that's enough to create something. So I would say start with whatever you have, you know, whatever tools you have. It's crazy, like, you know, how technology has advanced so much. Like, I remember for one of the songs on my upcoming album, I started that song with my phone. So literally I went into GarageBand on my phone and made like the structure for the whole song, just to share like of course, like, you can be limited in one way or another, but really don't be afraid to just start with what you have and master what you have, because once again, it's about your passion, it's about your hard work, but yeah, just start with whatever you have. I think that's the first thing that I would say to anyone who's trying to do, music or even just anything. Just start with what you have. And I think the second thing would be, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail, because you won't be able to learn about yourself and grow in your craft unless you try something. And I actually have this mindset where, in art and in music, I really don't think that you can really fail. I honestly feel like every failure, what we call failures, are just opportunities to get better, or they're just like ways for you to learn about who you are and create something even better. So I would just say, don't be afraid to fail, because that's one of the things that got me stuck for 3 years. It's like, man, I don't want to fail. Like, I don't want to create like an album that people are laughing at, like it's not good, or it's not mixed well, or the vocals are crappy and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to do that. So I was stuck for 3 years, And I have so many, friends or creators as well. And one of my friends, I don't know if you know him, but he's kind of like a social media motivator, but pastor and stuff like that. He does a lot of creative stuff, but we've been friends for a long time, and he got stuck as well for a little bit. His name is Alex Wilson, but he's doing great things. But we've talked about, not being stuck in a mindset where you can't do anything because you're too afraid that what you're going to do is not going to turn out the way you want it to turn out. But if you continue to do whatever you want to do, you're going to get better each time, and you're going to evolve as in your craft and your ability to make music and stuff like that. So that's the thing. Don't be afraid to fail. And I think the third thing would just be hard work and consistency. Nothing great comes out unless you have those two. You have to be consistent. You have to work hard. Like for me, I had to, because creating comes natural. It's kind of a natural thing for me. But even for me, like I had to remind myself, no, I'm gonna make this lifestyle. I'm gonna wake up every day and try to make a song. I'm gonna wake up every day. Even creating this album, I'm still trying even to create new songs and to be inspired constantly, because I know that inspiration is a great thing. Sometimes you get inspired, you create something. But for me, I'm like, I'm not gonna wait to get inspired. I'm gonna always put myself in positions where I could create something great. So hard work and consistency is really important. But that is matched with believing in who you are and believing in who you've been made to be. Because if you believe in that, then you're going to be consistent in pursuing that thing and growing in your craft. So those are some of the things that I think are very key for anyone who's trying to start something. Start where you're at. Don't be afraid to fail and work hard.
So like you mentioned at the very beginning, you listen to other podcasts and other interviews. For other aspiring artists out there, what would you suggest that they listen to?
There's a lot to listen to. Well, what I live on YouTube, so so literally, so I listen to a lot of, well, for me, what applies to me directly is 21 Pilots, just because I've been following every interview they've ever made. Just because like their stories are like so powerful in terms of like starting something, believing in yourself, and not looking at what other people are doing, just like being focused on what you have to do. So I would recommend any interview by 21 Pilots. They're a big inspiration for me. And yeah, that's honestly, that's probably what I only watch, 21 Pilots interviews. And I watch I watch everything on YouTube, man. Like I watch The Breakfast Club, like Hot 97.
Yeah.
I watch even the Joe Budden interview, a podcast. I watch. What else do I watch, man? I watch so many things. But yeah, I just love to like pull from many streams and learn from that. But all those podcasts I watch. I also watch anything that has to do like with artists like Pitchfork and all those type of stuff. So I don't know, but 21 Pilots, I would recommend their interviews and The Breakfast Club and all those guys. I mean, I'm not saying that everything they release is gold, but but yeah, there are some really cool interviews there. So yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time? Like how much are we filling up so far?
Around 50 minutes already.
Wow. Okay. That was a good amount of time.
Yeah.
We try to keep it between 40 and an hour.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So now at the end of each podcast, if I remember, which this time I do remember, I just let the guests have the floor, talk about whatever you want to talk about, plug whatever you want to plug.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, you have an album coming out soon.
Yeah. So so if you didn't know, I'm releasing a single called Let Me Know, which is on all streaming platforms right now.
Go stream it.
Yeah, go stream it. I believe it's really good. So
we listened to it on the way over too.
Oh, really?
It's good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Go stream it.
Yeah, go stream it. Don't listen to anything else but that. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so that's out, and then in 3 weeks from now, I'm releasing a second single, and after that, 4 weeks after that, I'm releasing the whole project. So by the end of October, the whole project should be out. So it's kind of like a 9 songs album, if you will. So that's kind of like the plan. So we have a lot of stuff coming up, music videos and stuff like that, live performances, just a lot of content. But for now, the single is out, and another single in 3 weeks, and then the full length album. And then we're trying to do like some listening parties, but we're really trying to do a show here in Fresno and start from there and see where we can go. But yeah, those are some of the stuff coming up. So after October, the full record will be out, and then there's going to be a lot of information as to like shows and stuff like that. But if you want to, be updated, Sumbela on Instagram or anything social media platform, you can follow me, and you'll be updated for sure.
For sure, and let us know, because
yeah,
whenever, like the other day, our second episode, we had Cheney, who is a photographer at Young and Humble Photography, and he just released like a photo book, and he sells it, and so we plugged all of it, and I got one, and we put all this info up again the other day. So just let us know when you start releasing new stuff and have upcoming stuff. We'll help promote it, man.
Totally. No, thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you having us over at 10 a.m.
I know.
11 a.m. now.
It was fun. It was
a lot of fun. So like he said, with all that stuff, it'll be linked in our description, wherever you're listening, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud and Spotify. SoundCloud and Spotify. There you go. Abraham's the expert. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Mr. Sumbela.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure. Thanks, dude.
Oh, man. All right, that's it. There it was. There was the episode with David Sumbela. With you, as always, is Dustin Allen. And we have Barkley in my hand right now as well.
And Abraham Jacobs, audio producer.
And if you feel so inclined, please like, subscribe, and please, please, please share with your best friends, share with your coworkers, share with your loved ones, share with your dogs like Barkley here.
You don't even got to share it. Just tell your friends, like, you know what? I saw this cool dude, Sumbela. He was on this, what was it? community proud podcast. Just tell your friends, man, you know, because they listen, they get others to listen, and that just helps us expand our horizon, expand the people that we reach, expand the effect that we have not only on our viewers but also our guests. If we get more people listening to Sumbela and his new album, link in the description, go check it out, and that's an amazing thing.
And that's what this podcast is all about, guys. We take people in the community and we really try to support anything that they do and really try to give them as much exposure as possible. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram, because once we get to 150 followers on Instagram, we have a big surprise with like Abraham just said, with one of our past guests that we did. So please stay tuned for that. Please share so we can hit that 150 as quick as we possible, because we have a huge announcement going on. Yeah.
All right. So of course you can follow our guests at Sumbela, at _SUMBELA. You can follow Dustin Allen at
Dallin2199. That's DALLEN 2199.
And of course my beautiful light skinned self at at _Abe.Jacobs.
And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Community Proud Podcast.